Hey, this is Mike G from Press Start Productions, and today I'm going to be talking about Painkiller Already, episode 107. Now, Painkiller Already, or PKA, is a podcast done by Woody's Gamertag, Wings of Redemption, and FPS Kyle. It's a very successful podcast where they invite guest stars on, and they do it every Thursday, and basically what they talk about is Call of Duty, some other games, and life, and it's a pretty funny and entertaining podcast, so I'd recommend you check it out. Now, I was listening to episode 107, and they're talking about the MLG and competitive community for Call of Duty and how it's going to change in Black Ops 2 and how they'd like to see it change. Now, I think it's important for every YouTuber to make a response to this vid, because Treyarch has pretty much pledged support to the competitive Call of Duty community, and they've shown that by inviting these MLG players to go play Black Ops 2 early, and they've been giving a lot of input on how Black Ops 2 needs to be changed and the fixes that need to be made. Now what this means is that chances are a lot of the stuff that MLG is going to need changed and what they're going to want to do with rule sets and stuff is going to translate into Treyarch's public match game modes and fixes on guns and equipment and stuff that Treyarch will do throughout the game. Now that's why it's going to affect even the players that don't play COD competitively. And by competitively, I mean like on game battles or MLG or Deserto. I'm not talking about COD Elite or playing competitively in public matches. It's not real competitive. So what they were saying that really interested me on PKA 107 was they're talking about the Black Ops Pro circuit. And for those of you that don't know, Black Ops, the original, was picked up by MLG on the Pro circuit. It was the first COD to be on the circuit the entire year, and it had multiple events that just had tons of teams coming, and it was really interesting. They would stream the events. There was a big prize. I think it was about $10,000 for first place at every event, and it was really great. But the one problem was the views it got. It didn't get as many views as games like StarCraft 2. Now, the speculated reason that the people on PKA had was that public match players couldn't relate to it as well because of the strict rules that MLG players play by, which is called MLG variant. Now, games like StarCraft 2 and stuff, there's no regulations. Everything you can use in a MLG match on StarCraft 2, you can use in a regular StarCraft 2 match. And in COD, it's completely different. And I'm going to use Black Ops as an example because MW3, even though there was MLG variant for it and there were LAN events, there were no MLG LAN events. All these LAN events were EGL events or UMG events or other smaller time LAN events. And for those of you that don't know what LAN is, it's local area network where everybody goes to a certain place that's hosting the tournament and everybody plays on the same connection, so it's even. There's no type of host advantage or anything like that. So on the Black Ops Pro circuit, you had, at the beginning, before Rapid Fire was banned, you basically had AK-74U with Rapid Fire and FAMAS Red Dot, with the perks Lightweight Sleight of Hand and Ninja or Lightweight Steady Aim and Ninja. And the reason these perks were used were because Black Jacket was banned, Warlord was banned, TAC Mask Pro was banned, and there may have been a couple other perks that I'm forgetting that were also banned, but there were other equipment and weapons that were banned. You had RPGs that were banned, shotgun attachment, flamethrower attachment, grenade launchers, C4s, RPGs, any type of launcher was banned. There was no need for Ghost because there were no kill streaks, those were disabled. And Claymores, motion sensors, all types of equipment were banned. There was none of that going on. Crossbows were banned as well. And the reason for that was to make the game as competitive as possible, to keep it gun skill, nade skill, teamwork, and just map knowledge and smarts to win the game. And it was deemed by MLG, and has been in most games, that things like Claymores and stuff take away from that skill and competitive aspect that's needed to win games. So the argument on PKA was that it would get more views if more stuff was allowed. And I can kind of see the point of that, but the problem you're going to run into is that the pub kids just use too much stuff that just wouldn't work in a competitive scenario. And I'm going to give you some examples. Now, Wings had stated that he really felt that Claymores should be allowed. Now, there's a couple things that Claymores are going to call us, and I'm going to use Black Ops perk system as an example instead of using MW3 since that wasn't picked up by the circuit. And the next COD, Black Ops 2, is going to be a sequel to it, so I'm pretty sure it'll have similar functioning perks even if they're given different names. And a lot of the perks are already known, but nothing's 100% confirmed until release date. Now, in Black Ops, you had, what was the name? Hacker Pro. That's what it was. Hacker would let you detect enemy equipment and explosives and stuff. Now, Hacker's in the same category as Ninja, which means if you're trying to avoid a Claymore, you're going to need Hacker, right? Well, without Ninja, people can hear you with their headsets turned up. So you're sacrificing the ability to walk around the map quietly just to look out for Claymores, and you're not going to be able to do it. That's going to put you at a huge disadvantage. You have to be using Ninja. So that means if you don't want to get hit by a Claymore, you got to look at your feet constantly and make sure you don't run into a Claymore, which is very difficult to do when you're trying to focus on the objective, calling out, looking at the mini-map, seeing where your team's located, and trying to beat the enemy in gunfights and nade flags and stuff like that all at the same time. Now, the modes for Black Ops variant was Domination, Search and Destroy, and Capture the Flag. So, nades were a huge aspect, especially in Domination, nading the flags, right? So, if you had Flak Jacket, which could defend against Claymores, right? You have Flak Jacket on, if everything was allowed, you'd be allowed to use that. But Variant had banned that. So if you were allowed to use Flak Jacket and nothing was banned, which was pretty much the suggestion that came from PKA, at least from Wings' perspective, Woody said that, and I think Kyle and I'm not sure if Kyle was there. I apologize for not remembering correctly if I am wrong, but I know Optic Midnight was on there. And she said she didn't agree with the Claymore thing either. But going off Wings' perspective, you'd have to be using Flak Jacket Pro. That'd be the only feasible way to avoid Claymores. But that would ruin Domination, because then you'd have the problem of nades not being useful at all, so there'd be no point in having a nade, because Flak Jacket Pro can just sponge nades. Now, something else can counter that though, Warlord Pro, and RPGs, if those were allowed, which was a suggestion that they should be allowed, at least by the people in PKA. Now, if those were allowed, then it would be nearly impossible to capture a flag. If you have the other team shooting RPGs, and with Warlord Pro being able to throw 2 nades with flag, even with Flak Jacket, you're never going to get a flag. Now, suppose they run out of that. Suppose they use up all their RPGs and nades, and you're actually able to get on the flag. You might be able to cap it, or you might get taken off with a gun. It makes for a really bad matchup. And they were also talking about kill streaks being used, which I don't think would work either, because you would have to have a Ghost class. If kill streaks are able to be used, you'd have to have a Ghost class, and Ghost would take care of your first perk, which means no Flak Jacket. So now you can't even sponge a nade or an RPG shot or anything. So how are you going to cap a flag in Domination? How are you going to be able to sponge a nade in CTF when they're trying to stop you? Whereas the team that has the UAV would still have the advantage of being able to use their Flak Jacket. So you could nade them, nothing happens. But because you have to use Ghost, you don't get seen on the radar and pre-fire, you lose that ability to have Flak Jacket. Now, another thing that wasn't accounted for is they're talking about variety, and saying that it didn't have enough variety in the matches. But the amount of variety you can get in Variant is really limited, because you're dealing with the best players that are going to use the best possible classes in any scenario. In Black Ops, I can almost guarantee each player would have had 4 different classes, if everything was allowed. Now typically, without everything allowed, like I said earlier, you'd have a FAMAS, Red Dot, Lightweight, Sleight of Hand, Ninja. That would be after they banned Rapid Fire, which they ended up doing. I believe it was It was after the 25K tournament. It might have been after the first event. I can't remember. But after that was banned, you pretty much might have had an AK-74 with gripper extended mags, lightweight sleight of hand, or steady aim, and ninja. And there was no equipment, so you'd probably have a frag and concussion, and magnum as your secondary. Then you'd pretty much have the same exact class except for a FAMAS red dot as your primary. Well, if everything was allowed, you would probably have 4 classes. AK-74 rapid fire with an RPG, frag, concussion, claymore, flak jacket, sleight of hand, ninja. Same exact setup except a FAMAS red dot. And then the same 2 setups except flak jacket exchanged for ghost in case the other team gets a kill streak. So essentially you really wouldn't have any variety there. It'd be the same variety, except you'd have viewers complaining that they're using quote-unquote noob things like claymores, motion sensors, RPGs, flak jacket, ghost, and I think that would actually end up detracting from views. And Wings also made a comment, if it takes skill, why do you need to use the best guns? Well, if you ban the best guns, they're just going to use the next best gun. So basically, the reason they have the rules they do is because even without the rules they have, people are still not going to have that much variety in their classes because they're going to use the best possible class. What they're doing is forcing them to have to rely on gun skill, teamwork, and communication to watch their back instead of having a claymore or motion sensor to watch their back. And they also have to rely on their instincts and their ability to predict instead of looking at a UAV and knowing where the enemy's at. And that's what makes competitive the way it is. You have some of the smartest players that can predict exactly where you're going to go. Players that don't miss shots. Players that can jump, shoot, and hit their target at the same time without messing up. People that just are beyond the skill level of nearly any other COD player. And that's why they're taking so much input from the MLG community, because those are the ones who have really played it and know what they're doing the best. And hopefully Black Ops 2 will work out to be a really good game. Hopefully it'll be balanced. And I think Treyarch's taking the right approach. They're taking the exact opposite approach of what PKA was recommending, which was make the MLG rules more lenient. Pub kids will like it. Where Black Ops 2, at least in my opinion, with the ranking system and everything, they're trying to bring these kids in public matches to play more competitive, to use their best possible setups and try their hardest so they can rank up and get better and move up in whatever type of ranked system they're going to use, where you get matched against players of similar ability. And I think that's gonna really raise the standard, and I think that's the way to get an MLG popularized. I don't think adding in things that are frowned upon in the pub community to the MLG community is going to make anything better. I think it's going to make the MLG community look more like a joke. But that's just my opinion. I have a lot of respect for everybody on PKA. I'm not trying to down anybody, I'm just putting that out there. And we really need, and the MLG players, and I play competitive, I'm not an MLG player, I'm not even close, I just play competitive, I enjoy it, but we need the support of those big YouTubers, you know? Because if they tell their viewers, hey, guess what, there's an MLG event this week, make sure you tune in and watch it, that's so many more views, that's so much more money generated by MLG to have more of these tournaments. And help the competitive community grow, and it'll also give more input from the viewers, so better decisions can be made about what to do with the MLG rules.